And we're live.
Ah, sweet.
Alrighty, Dan Naples. Hello, sir.
Hey, Luke. Thank you for having me back. First of all, I'm super excited today.
As the purge is going off in the background with the 12 o'clock noon siren.
The purge in Youngstown, Ohio, as it starts.
We had to find a different location. The building that we usually record was locked for whatever reason, even though I do own the building. That's the podcasting campus. Anyway, Dan Naples, it's been a minute since I've had you on. How have you been?
I've been doing good. Back from overseas. I've been working in a master's program now. Just living life. It's been good. That's kind of just all that's been happening.
So we briefly touched upon the fact that you went overseas. You went to 3 different countries. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So for my work, I was sent overseas went to 3 different countries to do some business for some deals and stuff. Without getting too much into, I guess, what I'm doing because I can't work in corporate America and that stuff. But overseas, it was amazing just to see how different cultures are, both in a business term and in food and even driving. I mean, India, it was really cool to see. Like, you always see like how heavy the traffic is, and driving in a rickshaw, like those cars that are like 2 wheels in the back, one in the front, and those like metal carts. I rode in one of those, and man, at first I thought I was gonna get hit several times by like a truck, and it's like, man, I don't have a seatbelt on. The first thing you just kind of turn, and it's like, oh, there's a giant car that it just like slams on the brakes. I'm like, but India, I think I had the best meal of my life.
What was it?
I don't know the names of the food. It was tikka masala, so if you're familiar with that, it was a totally vegan meal. And so I had naan bread with tikka masala, so it was like these vegan cheese cubes. It was all from like the countryside. I had mango pudding.
Ooh.
So pudding made out of, they like, apparently it was like they took it off the tree, cut it, made it right then and there. The best mangoes, best fruit I've ever had in my entire life. Best rice I ever had, jasmine rice. I've started eating Indian food now that I'm back here. I go out of my way for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all their food over there was amazing. One thing though, do not eat from a street vendor if you go overseas. And like, I'm talking directly to the camera here. Please do not do that. Go to a restaurant. I was told that by several people who are from India. Do not do that. You are risking a lot when you do that.
Okay.
Drink bottled water too. Like.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. We went to the Dominican Republic in the summer. My family and I wasn't thinking. I woke up one morning to brush my teeth, put the water on the toothbrush, put the toothpaste on it, started brushing for like 5 seconds. Had to immediately spit it out. I remember what I did. I was sick for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, we're very blessed in this country with our water system. Even here where we live is surprisingly really good water.
Yeah.
Thailand is awesome. Most beautiful men I've seen in my life. You just kind of walk around because plastic surgery is really common there. They just advertise it everywhere. And second, it's kind of hard to tell. I went to actually a drag show in Thailand, because those are really popular.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because it was like a musical instead of just kind of, right here it's oftentimes like a fashion runway show.
Yeah.
Still kind of cool, but here they have in Thailand, it was like a full hour-long musical performance with all these huge dresses. In Thailand's culture around sexuality, it's very different to kind of how we have here in America. They also surprisingly have a monarch.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they love them. They love the royal family there. They were never conquered or colonized, so like it's been existing for a while.
That's interesting.
Yeah, in the factory I saw, like they just had like a picture of him just up. The hotel I was at, they had like a big photo of when he visited there in like the 70s. Their king.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned how they weren't colonized or anything like that. What are your thoughts on what's happening in the UK, in Europe too, and like France and stuff?
What do you mean by that? Like,
so there's like a narrative, especially on Twitter. You see like the rioting and stuff like that, the videos. people burning stuff. Maybe I'm.
Oh, are you saying like for I guess like kind of how
It's
like
like,
general protesting that they've had in like
yeah, there's
France?
like, I don't even know if it's a conspiracy. I think it's just a thought. That like these are immigrants from like African countries. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what that's known. So people on the internet will call this. It was coined in I believe 2012 by a philosopher named Renault something. He was a French philosopher, and I say that in quotations because he came up with what was called the Great Replacement Theory.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
That so what you're kind of mentioning, people are trying to sort of bring back. It was really big in 2015 with the Syrian refugee crisis. How it goes is immigrants are coming. There's some master plan to replace white people because of XYZ reasons. They always say the elites or globalists are doing it. But if you actually trace this back in time for where a lot of his assumptions and things for this are from, it comes from Mustache Man in 1936 Germany. I don't think YouTube likes his name. Failed Austrian painter man came up with this. So the elites are a specific, religious group that group, Mr. Mustache Man didn't like, usually. So that, yeah.
By the way, what a style that is just gone.
Yeah.
Like somebody really enjoy, at least one person other than him had to have loved that mustache. Woke up every day, thought it was like the best thing in the world, and they can't do it now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was like a stylish thing back then.
And like that name was a very popular name.
Yeah, I think there was like 40-ish families in America. Like for instance, obviously after everyone's like, yeah, I'm gonna change my name. That's not a
Let's do that.
Yeah, like this is not a good family name to have. Well, for good reason. Yeah,
I don't care if it was like to honor Grandpa.
Yeah, like
Grandpa would understand.
Sometimes Grandpa sometimes have opinions. Like, okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Not to go off on a tangent, but I'm gonna do it. It was a Super Bowl halftime show 2 years ago. It was all my family watching it, right? So you had me, my parents, my uncle, my aunt generation, that generation, then the boomers. And like my parents' generation, my aunt, my uncle, who like grew up listening to like Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre.
This was Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre.
They were like, oh wow, what a performance. That was the best halftime show ever. And then all the boomers in the room were like,
They're having a cultural issues. I wonder what they mean.
The type of people, it wasn't like that, but like it's just so crazy how like some boomers will like see people that don't look like us on TV and just
I don't like that. Like
I don't know, but it was just funny, the whole dynamic.
Like why? Like it's like your uncle's favorite basketball player is Larry Bird. Like why is that? Why do you like Kevin Love and Larry Bird so much?
I mean, I get the appeal, but it's just kind of funny how like the game got so much better since like everybody was allowed to play. I don't know. Anyway, going back, let's avoid that topic because I already do have one strike expiring soon. But who knows? Maybe they want to gift me another one.
Straight to our doorstep.
Yeah. So we were talking about the Great Replacement Theory, and I hear people talk about Brexit all the time, and I understand it was like sort of geared like around like immigration stuff like that, but I never really understood the full thing. What is Brexit?
So Brexit is so first before we go to Brexit, we got to understand the European Union. European Union started very early on, right after World War II, as an economic zone between West Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, actually, for steel, coal, and some other basic raw materials and industry for free trade. And the idea behind that was if we're interconnected by trade, we will not go to war with each other. And over time, this expanded to more democracies. It included more things like, okay, to be a member, you need to be a democracy. You need to have XYZ rights for your citizens. Your economy meets certain standards. You have certain regulations. And they're centered in Brussels. So they actually have an overarching like economic committee that every member state is a part of. They also have things like the Eurozone. So like Switzerland is, uses the euro, but they're not part of the EU. They have, like, different levels, but that's in short what it is. So Brexit was kind of started in 2012, like the movement, and then it came to a head with Brexit happening like 2015, 2016, where they to leave the European Union. This was so they wanted to basically impose different regulations, have more autonomy. And in part, so if you're a member, if you're EU citizen in a member country, you have access to go across borders freely. Of course, yeah. Totally, you can work there if you want. No extra paperwork. You're totally fine. So they wanted to prevent that for certain immigration. Well, kind of the problem you have when you're England and you do that, and you're the largest colonizer on Earth, is you have a connection to a lot of these countries outside of the EU. For instance, India. You have, so many African countries you already have these trade connections with. It makes a lot of sense. You have a lot of immigration there. The more you trade with a country, the more business interactions, the more it's like, oh, this makes sense because I'm doing business here. And so that's kind of how Brexit started. They also wanted to impose tariffs, have some more control over the currency. And it's been not a great success. I think right after Brexit, the British pound lost 10% of its value on the world stage after.
Just right after?
Yeah, no, investors were like, this isn't a stable currency anymore. It is now, but there's a lot of economic ramifications. If you're familiar with Northern Ireland and Ireland and the conflicts there, that spurned a lot of conflict because Ireland is still an EU member state, where Northern Ireland Ireland's independent, whereas Northern Ireland is not. Yeah. So now no longer is there free transport.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so that flared up tensions. There's been shootings with IRA, which is a organization that is prominent for Irish unification. Because of the EU, and there's everyone can cross borders pretty fine. Ireland, while not by government is united, they are united. I can do business here. You can pretty much do everything you want as if they were one country. Yeah. So now that they need to figure out that Scotland, a part of the UK, also is much more left leaning. They are much more pro free trade. That also has spurned their independence movement from the UK off of England. Yeah.
Oh wow. Huh. And so I could see why that would cause a lot of controversy.
Yeah, it was a very controversial move. It was very controversial so in England you have the Conservative Party, which is more like a center-right party. Yeah.
Which I think it's so interesting, not to interject, but I think it's so interesting that here we have a religious right and they don't.
So they kind of do, but it's a very small party.
It's not
it's not the main party. Yeah. They even have a religious left. There's but instead of two parties, they have many parties. Where the main center left party is the Labour Party, the main center right party is the Conservative Party, and then you have Green Party, the UKIP party, which is this pseudo libertarian alt right mix party. They're weird. They're weird.
But I feel it's kind of, I don't know, this is just my opinion. I feel it's better that way to have 4 or 5 party, right? There's 4 parties that have representation in the UK Parliament, right?
So just about that. So you have the Conservative Party, Labour, Green Party,
Democratic Socialist Party, right?
They're kind of looped into Labour Party. Okay. So you kind of your more just market liberals and Demosocs and the same party, and they kind of meet in the middle between those two. Yeah. Imagine, I guess, right of Bernie Sanders, left of Elizabeth Warren. I see. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah. You have Sinn Féin, which is the Irish Nationalist Party for Northern Ireland, and then you have the SNP, Scottish Nationalist Party. Oh, wow. So Scottish Nationalist Party, they're more left-leaning, same with Sinn Féin. They're both very left-leaning parties, usually make coalition governments with the Labour Party, whereas same with Green Party, the Conservative Party and UKIP usually are together, and I'm sure there's another right-wing party. I don't say right wing as kind of in the same aspect as the American right wing. It's different. Yeah, but if we have the middle, they're on the right hand side spectrum.
I see.
Similar with Germany operates in a similar way. Australia, New Zealand, and Canada all kind of have very similar setups,
Mm-hmm.
very similar parties. That's kind of how they have multiple parties. They don't really have a dual party system like the United States has.
Which I feel like is better because you don't have one team versus the other creating all this chaos and division, which I think personally is manufactured by other people much more wealthy than us combined.
Yeah, no, 110%.
Yeah, but I just feel like it's better kind of to just like divide up all that outrage and chaos, and when the teams are smaller, I feel like it's a little bit better.
You're forced to cooperate.
Exactly.
Even if you don't want to, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know. It makes me sad sometimes when I hear people say, "Oh, I don't vote." And I mean, it's your right. I get it. It's your right. People always say, if you don't vote, then you shouldn't be able to complain. I don't even feel like you live here. You have freedom of speech. That's fine. But I don't know. It just makes me sad.
Yeah, we have men and women who have fought and died for those rights. There's some, I would say, for America, it's something we should hold kind of almost sacred.
Very.
Like that's kind of like it's the premise for why we were formed, and I kind of see it as that's a big block to progress in America. And by progress, I'm not saying like just progressive, but however we want to take our country. If it's maybe it is like make America great again. We want to cut taxes or whatever it is, or we want Bidenomics or whatever it may be. We need more people to take control of the steering wheel, not let politicians do. And the way we do that is by taking control of our ballot box.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the last election was very encouraging, no matter who you voted for. What was like 150 million people that voted? Record numbers?
We had that was the largest election turnout since I believe it was 1912.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was that was bigger than Kennedy's election. It was bigger than Reagan's election.
And considering the country was much smaller at the time, that's crazy. I would imagine the majority of the country did vote, which...
majority of people who could vote at the time.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, yeah, like, it's not to say that, I always like to say kind of America is great, but in our past, we just need to put a little asterisk next to the great.
Of course.
Yeah. But even then, we still, in 1912, had a lot of, there was the progressive Republican era. We had, the Democratic Party kind of going through a big change after the Civil War. We had the Bull Moose Party with Teddy Roosevelt.
That's right. And he never got elected as president when he was running with that party, correct?
No, he didn't. Yeah, he split the vote, I believe. I don't know if it was that year. Yeah, it was in 1912. He split the vote of Republicans. So no party actually gained a majority, but Woodrow Wilson was able, through the Electoral College, able to become president. So,
is that similar to what happened with Ross Perot when he took away votes from the Republicans?
So actually, no. Ross Perot took away votes actually almost equal between Democrats and Republicans when he ran.
Interesting.
I believe at least the first time he ran. Second time I'm not as familiar with, so I don't want to speak on that. But I know for the first time, at least, when he had all the hype around his name.
Yeah. Back in 92?
Yeah, 92 and 96. He ran twice under the Reform Party. And fun fact, you want to know who also ran in 2000 under the Reform Party?
Who?
Donald Trump.
What?
Yeah, that was the first time he ran for president.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
He ran in 2000?
Yeah, he ran under the American Reform Party. As in a primary, he went against, it was Donald Trump, I don't know if it was Al Sharpton.
No
Yeah, so
way.
like a civil rights leader. And then...
I know Al Sharpton. Everybody knows Al Sharpton.
Shout out Al Sharpton. I like him.
That was back when he was a little bit bigger, too.
Yeah.
Drastic weight loss, by the way.
Yeah, no.
Hats off to him. Sorry, I got a little excited. Hats off to Al Sharpton making awesome choices with his life.
Yeah, for
give up to Al Sharpton, man. That's awesome. Good for him. Anyway, but yeah, I never knew about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story of how, like, that was, like, the death of the American Reform Party. Not because of Trump, but just because that election had a lot of crazy stuff go on.
Like what?
Like people trying to say, oh, this person did this person did that. Because they had many people running. I think you also had Jesse Ventura ran under the American Reform Party.
A former Minnesota governor who's a
Yeah.
WWE wrestler.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
crazy. Which
Uh,
I think it's so funny how you get like populist candidates like that from time to time.
oh yeah. I always have some admiration for them, especially my boy RFK Jr. Uh,
Wait, you want to talk about him?
100%.
All right. I would vote for him in a second. I think.
I like RFK Jr. and this comes from I also want to state I like Joe Biden. However, I think I so there are two things I disagree with RFK on. His stance with vaccines, however, I think he's a little misrepresented in the media.
I think so too.
I think he's more, hey, if you want a vaccine, you can take it. So for me, I have three COVID shots. I'm fully up to date. Like, hey, people have their health choices. But I don't see him necessarily being like, oh, I'm going to ban vaccines. And
No, no, no.
And the second thing is, well, he is kind of anti. He's not so anti, but is very skeptical on sending aid to Ukraine. But that is not for kind of how I see the Republican Party as. Oh, well, we don't need to be getting in Russia's way, or we should have better relations with Russia. At least from my perspective, that's how the GOP is kind of handling it. It's more so I'm an anti-war president. I dislike war.
Yeah.
It's not just our involvement in Ukraine. It's our involvement in the Middle East. It's our involvement globally.
He's just like his uncle in that regard.
Yeah, and he's like, with I believe it was the CBS interview he said, yeah, I want to cut the Department of Defense's budget. I want to reinvest in America's working class by whether that's helping prop up industries, whether that's generous welfare programs. I'm like, you know what? Like, I kind of like that.
I listened to a podcast with him and his wife on the Tim Dillon show. I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Dillon. He was talking about like fixing something with mortgages, allocating money, and then giving it to teachers first.
Give everyone a rich uncle. So basically allowing first-time home buyers for single-family residences to get a guaranteed loan at 3.5% fixed interest rate.
Yeah.
Through the government.
And he was saying teachers would be the first ones to get it.
I know, yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, because, I mean, owning a home is the number one way and pathway for the average American to build wealth. I mean, yeah, now we have Robinhood and stuff, but if you want a stable, increasing way to gain wealth and also not burn your money away on rent, which we're seeing at such a high rate in America with record rent prices, record housing prices, this would allow more people to basically own their home. It stops, like, BlackRock, Vanguard, et cetera, all these companies from, which I'm sure, I want to get into those just later. I want to keep talking about RFK, but from stopping buying up all the houses or just real estate firms. I mean, I've seen, Warren Buffett's company. They're buying up a lot of housing.
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, yeah. He's more so, I think.
Farmland.
Yeah, farmland. He's really big on farmland, which... It's very interesting.
His defense was really interesting. He said like something to the degree of like oh well, this is a small amount of land.
I think it's small amount to him, just like how much money he has. So I don't think, at least for him, I do think there's corporations that are malicious, especially from the Chinese government. But I think for him, on the air of like, it's not a main focus for him. It's like because I'm sure he has stock, he has. Charitable foundations. He has all these business things going on to keep his wealth growing. And it's like, yeah, I own farmland. It's a real estate investment, and
I just want to pretend that he doesn't have any bad intentions. I want not pretend, but I want to believe that. Mm-hmm. But when you see him pushing things like, oh well, there's this fake meat, but it's actually going to be better for you, or oh, it's okay to eat bugs. You know, bugs are a healthy source of protein.
Yeah.
That's when I start to go,
I don't want to eat bugs. No, I do see if, like, you want to bring that to the market for consumer choice, by all means. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
let it win in the free market if it's going to
win. I want to make sure, okay, is it healthy to you? I want to make sure that we have health regulations. I want to make sure, like, this is good for people to consume.
That's another thing, okay? We are so fucked right now when it comes to all of the regulations in regards to food, okay? Not just fast food, but any food. You want to talk about GMOs? Russia just banned GMOs, which it's kind of like a touchy subject. I don't really have an opinion on GMOs.
So for GMOs, I think we may want to, So in terms of health, I think so this actually goes with RFK. He was the guy who took on Monsanto. He was the lawyer who sued them and proved Monsanto was doing bad stuff to farmers, to Roundup, which if you're not familiar with Roundup, it's a pesticide, was causing cancer, was causing a lot of damage, and he took them on and beat them. And they were saying,
good.
Yeah, and people were saying he's a conspiracy theorist, then he's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, this isn't like your crazy uncle who's been on Reddit too long. He's a very smart guy.
Although he was a heroin addict, but he's recovered.
Yeah, I mean, well, how many heroin addicts did we have that are in the U.S. Congress right now? Hey, George H.W. did a lot of blow and was an alcoholic at one point. So, like, if he's not doing it anymore, so be it, you know?
Yeah.
But
I've seen Vice.
But, yeah.
They depicted him like an idiot. I mean, maybe he was. I mean, you see.
No, he was a partier. He like his brother Jeb was like supposed to be kingmaker, but like George was just like.
And I think it's so funny. It's just so like the irony of the American people. We're idiots. A lot of us are idiots. You're from Massachusetts. And they tried this. They put him up as this guy from Texas with a Texas accent, but like, this guy is like a high class Republican from New England.
Yeah, it worked. He was governor of Texas. Too.
Genius.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, it's crazy. So GMOs, I think we need to take a balanced approach. I think the main problem though with GMOs, I think some of them may have health issues. We need to kind of see. I think we need more testing. I think we need more regulation on them.
Yeah.
But the main problem is intellectual property with them. So we have farmers, right? You want to grow corn, GMO corn. You need to buy the seeds. Either you buy the seeds, grow your crop, take the seeds, use them for next season. The problem is with GMOs. Monsanto, Nestle, whatever the company is selling the seeds, owns the rights to the seeds. So you have to
still.
After the crop rotation, you take the seed out of the corn, let's say. So for next season, you got to pay Monsanto.
Oh fuck! Damn. And also, isn't it true that I don't know if I think they still use glyphosates, right?
Yes.
As sort of like a weed killer, essentially, or like a fertilizer.
They have them in weed killer in some degrees. I think for some crops for keeping away pests.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they spray it like airborne now, and
some GMOs it's in the crop.
Oh jeez. And I saw or I didn't see, I heard, obviously I was listening to that podcast, and RFK went on to talk about, the glyphosates that they either spray or they plant in the actual seed, and it's like it kills everything else but the corn.
Yeah.
And so he said, and I don't know if that's true or not, I haven't did my research on this.
Certain areas, yes, he is true about that. How widespread? It kind of depends on your crop.
Yeah, and he said it was linked to things like people who have gluten intolerance, or my girlfriend's mom, she has oh my gosh, celiac. Linked to celiac, which like her whole entire life now has changed because like everything she eats, like she can't even touch something that has been touched by something with gluten. Same thing with my brother's girlfriend.
That's terrible. I have a friend of mine. She has a gluten allergy, and it's terrible. But yeah, glyphosate runoff, I know so it's not necessarily that I think the glyphosate is in the food, but since we use it, so much of it, that creates a runoff usually into water or to the food eventually. Or maybe, if it's on a farm, water and ground near the cows, pig, whatever it is, eventually it hits us. And I mean, we have a lot of chemicals in our food. Some are good. We need to have some GMOs. We need some pesticides to feed the population we have.
What's the argument for and against the GMOs? Like I said, I'm not too familiar.
Oh yeah. So GMOs. So there, I guess, two ways. We've been genetically modifying plants, cows, everything for a while. So what I'm going to be, I guess I'll say is when I say GMOs, we're talking genetic modification at a DNA level done in like a laboratory or something like that we kind of first saw in the 90s.
I know a girl that was like created in a petri dish.
Wait, what? like test tube baby?
Yeah, test tube baby. Yeah, her eyes are like, woo.
as I forget who said it in Jurassic Park. You scientists spend so much time on what you could do, not to ask of what you should.
I mean, she's nice.
Oh yeah, no offense to anyone if you're a test tube baby, but like sometimes, man, like I really wonder. Like I'm Catholic, I really wonder at times, like
Me too.
do we play God too much? I think like with GMOs, like are we altering our world like too much? Like we should live in harmony with nature, not where I think, maybe I don't think master of nature is the right term, but where I think
we should have dominion over the earth, but we shouldn't abuse that.
Exactly. I think with like some of our extent with GMOs, it's helped increase food production, and that's a good thing. However, with the potentials of certain chemicals and things, that when we put them in, like Roundup, like glyphosates, we don't know long-term health effects. So I do know there was a study done. It was a urinalysis test between Amish families and most Amish do not use GMOs, for reference.
They don't do a lot.
Yes. And then I think it was just like a standard suburban family. And when they were testing, they tested their urine over, I think it was like a month period. They found that the average American family had they had pesticide in their urine where they didn't find as much in the Amish family. So we are seeing a elevated amount of pesticide, probably both you and me, but for people who are not eating GMOs, you're going to have a less amount. Now, we don't know if is that going to cause an issue because it was a very small amount. However, we don't know what those small amounts are going to do.
Have you heard of Dr. Shanna Swan?
No, I've not.
She was on the Joe Rogan Experience. She is a scientist, and she talked about these things called phthalates or phthalates.
Yeah,
phthalates. And how they're like in the microplastics that are like in our food. And so she said the average American consumes about a credit card a week.
Yep.
That's not true. It's less than that. But it's very concerning because she said this has been leading to a decline in penis size, Tate size, and decline in birth rates. Mm-hmm. So like increase in miscarriages, stuff like that.
They found one in a fetus.
Exactly. Inability for like a man's sperm to work. So it's not just on the woman. Let's stop saying that.
Yeah, no, it's causing. It doesn't matter what gender
exactly.
or race you are. This is causing a health issue.
Yeah, and it could ultimately lead to a really big depopulation issue if we don't solve this now.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't been getting much mainstream attention. I heard the podcast in 2021. I remember where I was cutting grass, and it shocked me. And things like tap water, even, you would think, okay, just don't drink out of plastic water bottles, okay?
Nope.
It's still in the tap water.
It's in the tap water.
And so we really can't do much to stop that. Like,
it's not an individual change. We need as a society to come together.
Yeah.
We utilize government. We need to utilize friends in the private sector. We need to, as society, kind of come to that. And I only see RFK Jr. talking about this.
He's the only one, which again, I don't like to be the tinfoil hat person, although it's very fun and it'll keep you up till like 4 or 5 a.m. But like, it just makes me question, like, is there some like nefarious scheme? Because like it generally scares me for like my children, our children's children, if I'm gonna even be able to like have children. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Where I don't think there's necessarily everyone's conspiring around the table like ha 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 ha. Who is it from The Simpsons? Like Mr. Burns. I don't think it's like there's a bunch of that. What I think it is we have a lot of profit incentive for these actions, and that a lot of companies, individuals are incentivized in such a way that they are not all acting the same, but acting towards a similar interest or similar goal. I mean, a lot of them, like Harvard grads, Yale grads, they know each other. They're in the same social clubs. So they're doing business in a way that supports each other, but it's not like all coordinating with each other, I guess. It's kind of like, so imagine it's like, supporting local business. Like, supporting local business is good. For their social class, there's kind of, that's occurring.
Yeah.
Like you want to support your social class the most, and if you're a billionaire, I would want to be doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Karl Marx even wrote about that. It was like, we put rich people into these positions. It's not that, yes, the actions often are coming to be immoral. That person is not a bad person. Because it's saying if you were in that position, you would be doing the exact same thing if you're having millions of billions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, you could disagree, agree with him, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. We don't put each other in other people's shoes a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of stem of like a lot of the problems in our country is we don't have a lot of empathy for other people.
We're too individualistic. I think we focus too self-centered. I think we need to think of other people a little bit more.
I feel like that's social media. That's money. Money corrupts everything. And it's just sad. But no, going back to the Monsanto case, you know, I tend to stop thinking about all these conspiracies when you think about that. Like, that's real change and real work, justice that was done. So I feel like it can be stopped. It's just, like you said, people have to come together and we have to understand it and realize what's happening. Yeah, and to your credit, like you said, he's the only one that's talking about all this, which is like, that's why he's a very attractive candidate for me. I don't like to put myself in the box of Democrat or Republican. I was raised in a conservative house, but I also see a lot of valuable traits from like being liberal. I love the idea of freedom of speech, even though it's kind of shifted. Traditionally, you had like the conservative moms trying to censor like rap music and stuff like that.
I mean, we still see that today with book bans.
That's true, but like I don't get it on both sides. Well, I kind of get it on both sides. So like obviously for like the Dr. Seuss books that they tried to ban, or did they ban them in Virginia? I don't remember.
Yeah,
Okay.
they did a lot of book bannings. For like To Kill a Mockingbird got banned. They ended up banning the Bible because of sexual content.
Yeah.
We're just going on a like was kind of like a conservative outrage for critical race theory, which ended up being, they didn't teach it in school. Like, I mean, from when I was in middle school, I don't remember them saying any of this stuff. And a lot of these books are like, this isn't like that of a controversial opinion. Like here and there, I get, you might want to protect kids from certain things, but like banning books about the Holocaust, no. Kids need to realize at a certain point, like don't teach it to a first grader. Time at sixth grade, you need to realize there were terrible people who did terrible things in the world.
Yeah.
That includes our past in our country, and we need to come to reconcile that, and how can we be better? And that's not just on a racial aspect or a sexual aspect.
Everything.
At a working class aspect. Kids used to be in factories. Coal miners were treated garbage. Even today, they get treated very, very poorly. And we suppressed a lot of rights for working class people, white, black, Asian American.
Yeah, we had concentration camps.
For Japanese, yeah.
When they came through Angel Island, which is crazy. You never learn about that.
And we want to suppress that. And I can see like there is a level of protection for younger children, but we need to be open that school is a place to learn, and that the history of the human race is not a nice thing.
Yeah, and I don't buy into the whole white guilt thing, especially for kids that didn't live it. They have no connection to it whatsoever. But I think we should teach history how it was, as opposed to like just this one side in America was all sunshine, rainbows. You know, when we've done a lot of, not us, but our country has done a lot of awful shit on behalf of us. And then maybe not our ancestors or our family before us, but like people that lived here, you know, slavery was a real thing. I don't think anybody tries to ignore it, but people should definitely be learning about that in school. And I had a point to build off, but then we just went in a different. Okay, so yeah, the only book that I understood why, at least from the conservative point, that they tried to ban was Genderqueer. Have you seen?
I heard a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Could you go over it? I'm not as familiar with it.
Yeah, we could read it. Honestly, hold on one second.
Can we? Okay.
Because this book, what it was, if this computer will load here. So this is like the whole like they're trying to turn our kids gay, where all that shit came from.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh. Hold on one second here. I could edit this out too. But like this was the only book that really like shocked me, and I don't know if they were trying to, like, if this was in like school libraries, like middle school libraries. I'm not too sure. So I'll read a page. So basically this is where the whole grooming term came from here. And I'm looking at the screenshots here. Okay, here's one. Here we go. I don't know. All right, so right here. We're not going to put this on the thing. But like right here, if you read, there's shit. Yeah. There's more overtly sexual ones, and I could find that on Twitter probably, but it's just stuff like that. And again, I didn't read that page I just tried to find it. I don't know if it's like what it is, what they're saying on that particular part of the book. But when I read this in a class, this guy was talking about, and he was coming more from like the left-leaning perspective. This professor, this was last year, and he was kind of throwing jabs at the conservatives for wanting to ban books and stuff. And to a large degree, man, I get that. I don't understand why we want to ban books about our dark past. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to things that are like remotely considered to be like indoctrination, and again, I think I pretty much the majority of people, I think like if gay people exist, then they should have all the rights as normal, you know what I mean, like everybody else, you know what I mean? 100%. I don't think that we should exclude trans people from society. My grandma would always say when I was growing up, all kinds of people make up this world, and you're gonna have to, learn how to live with everybody, in harmony with everybody. And I don't think that all the uptick in violence against trans people in particular is a right thing. I mean, I think the drag queen thing is like, I think it's an art form. I don't think there should be drag queen story hour, although I think that in libraries, but I think that's largely sensationalized.
Yeah, I think it's sensationalized, and also I think no one's being forced to go.
No, exactly.
No, yeah, if a locality wants to offer that, or someone wants to read to kids, and you don't have to go.
Yeah, and I had a member of my family talking about Penguin City, right? Mm-hmm. And this professor that I had in class happened to be in the family of the people who own Penguin City. Mm-hmm. He was in charge of the marketing and stuff. And this member of my family was kind of outraged because they had they had a drag concert or something. What's it called?
Drag show.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, straight white male. I'm not familiar with the terms, but they had a drag show there, and my argument was listen, only people that want to go are going. You can be mad at them, but at the end of the day, nobody's hurting, nobody's pushing it on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if I agree with it, it doesn't matter. This is a private company.
Oh, exactly.
So, what are your thoughts on this book? What are you seeing?
So,
the thing that I saw, it was basically it was a man and a younger boy. He was kind of coercing him into having sex. Yeah, and it was Joe, it's our secret. You don't have to tell anybody. And I saw the panel.
I did read that. I read some of the other. So, if it's trying to say that it's with a minor, that's inherently bad. I want to put that clear. Now, if it's trying to make a statement more so this is a 20-year-old guy and a 40, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. I can understand. If it's trying to make an exploration of sexuality and how there is a difference for a lot of different people and there's a lot of interactions, I can see where there's value. Now, at age ranges where we're opening
that's
I don't
the
think
thing.
A 14-year-old reading that, no. A 17-year-old, maybe even a mature 16-year-old, yeah.
Here it is. This is the image that people were. So this image right here that Dan, you saw his face. It's of a man giving head to another man, and this was in the book Genderqueer, right? It says that it was in Genderqueer. I'm not causing misinformation.
Another one. Yeah, this is the panel side.
And so this book is what caused a lot of outrage, particularly in red states. And I even saw there was a school board meeting in California where they talked about the specific book Genderqueer and how I guess it was in elementary schools, and there was large outrage. When it comes to this book, I completely understand the outrage. You don't want to teach children about sex, but eventually they do have to learn. The argument is what age is suitable for that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rests one with parents, but there is a responsibility for schools in
Exactly.
high school. It's a balancing act that we put teachers in. They're underpaid and they're doing that's a big job to do.
Yeah.
I think the issue's not so here much with the school, because them filtering every single book
It's
for
extremely hard.
yeah, this is not like a small book. This is not like a pamphlet. There's a lot of pages to it, so I can easily see in schools like they flip through it like, okay, this is exploring gender, sexuality, and different things, and you miss a panel. You miss
Yeah.
a single page. Like
Yeah.
you're an underpaid librarian out of school, not reading. Like
I get it.
Yeah, I can understand where some of the outrage comes from. Maybe censoring that page, I can understand,
I
and
just
then
think,
like saying, okay, you need to be like junior in high school.
yeah, I feel like if it's in a high school library, I think it's debatable, but I think unanimously people would say like no to like elementary
school,
school.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even saying middle school, like elementary school. I mean, I'm not advocating for this book to be anywhere, but I think elementary school, regardless of like if this is sensationalized or not, if this is something that was like created as like fake news or whatever, I'm not sure, but I've seen enough like school board meetings on Twitter. Okay, not even like the news or whatever, because they don't report on any of this, and if they do, it's like charged from what party affiliation you're at. But I just think in general, I don't know if it's wise to put a book like that out, or anything really with vivid sexual
Yeah.
implications to like how the story goes.
I could see. I think the a good argument that we could have is, as a society, maybe it's we kind of have. Well, social interactions are scientific, and we can study that. I think maybe putting the base scientific, like this is what is occurring. Like if we want to start introducing, because puberty is starting around 6th, 7th grade for
Yeah,
most people.
and I remember we had the classes in 5th grade.
Yeah, it was very. A man's part enters a woman's part. Blah blah
You
blah.
saw a penis.
Sometimes you have feelings for Catholic school, so we didn't talk about same-sex relations or anything, but I think there is, like, at least for our public schools, the value, like, this exists, these feelings can occur, not necessarily showing a guy getting blown, but like
Yeah, that
oral
was
sex exists.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean, like these things do exist. These are precautions to take, and then once you get to high school, as you mature, you're going on a journey with puberty, and I think we need to treat that as such for young people. And I think for a while in this country we haven't let that happen. And
Explain.
so I mean, right, I think sex being really open and out is a very modern thing. Like I don't want to like put this as just like a sole feminist thing, but we really started to see like sexual identity and liberation occur after the 70s.
The sexual revolution.
Yeah, sexual revolution, the gay rights movement, which are both huge things that have occurred. Gay rights movement was awesome for people in the LGBTQ community, because before I knew you, they weren't even called gay or homosexual. It was pervert. Like you can find old New York Times article about the Stonewall riots, and it was like perverts busted in a riot for this and this. In some places it was illegal because it was the idea that homosexuality inherently led to pedophilia.
Really?
Yeah. So when people, so I'm not saying all conservatives here, but when certain commentators start making, this is grooming, this has been around for a while. Like, and it's to help make people associate gay things with grooming and pedophilia. Not necessarily that if you're thinking like certain things like sexual, it's kind of like a rabbit hole, getting people to go down a rabbit hole.
It works.
Let's sensationalize. We'll use this picture of a guy getting head. It's in a school. Maybe it's in a high school, or hey, this ended up in the middle school library.
Yeah.
Like this isn't happening widespread, but once you have like you hook someone, it's like, okay, you see one piece of evidence, okay, and then it's like, with this and this, and you keep sensationalizing, you can keep people going, and it's like, okay, and then you can look back to the past, and they were doing the same exact thing, and it worked. So it's not to say that like there are a lot of people are saying gay people are groomers and pedophiles, but it's to get in your mind to associate those two things together without really. Eventually, people usually do get to the head where they believe that.
Yeah.
To associate those two things together, which being gay or LGBTQ plus, wherever you identify, proven time and time again, to not have, like, you're no more likely to be a pedophile.
Yeah.
If straight or gay. It just so happens oftentimes pedophiles, I hate to say it like this, but take what they can get when they can abuse whoever.
Yeah.
Which personally, I feel like pedophiles should be able to receive the death penalty. But that, before we go into a whole side tangent with that,
I get it. You saw DeSantis pass the bill.
No, I did not see what we passed.
I don't even have to look it up. Basically, giving the death penalty to rapists and pedophiles. Yeah.
Good. I think rapists who, like, you know, DNA evidence, and it's very, like, this is, like, you raped this person. Yeah, you should be, if you violently destroyed, in usually a woman's life, maybe not destroy their life.
This is domestic violence.
This woman has to live with the way you violate her the rest of her life.
Forever.
Yes, you should be put to death, in my opinion. Now, and I also think pedophiles, you've totally changed the way that individual child who goes through a person's view on sexuality and life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're well, you don't take away their life. You have totally taken a crucial part from life, because sexuality and the way individuals to experience that part of their life, it's integral to all of us. You're robbing someone of that.
Hurt people.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on people trying to, like, empathize with pedophiles a little bit? The term minor attracted person has come.
So I think there's two types. Before you actually make an act on those urges and beforehand. If you can be upfront and honest, I have XYZ urge, but have not acted on it, give them help. If they genuinely want to help and not do these things, we should have a pathway for them to be, like, you haven't done anything, but you're being upfront, honest, and you can acknowledge that this is not a right thing to do.
I agree with that.
But after the fact that you do something, that
you're going to be looked at very different.
You need criminal punishment, and the worst of cases, the death penalty, in my opinion. But I do think I don't think it's empathy. I think viewing it as an issue and as a pragmatic issue, we need to come up with ways to deal with people and make it preventative.
How do you think that happens? Because obviously there's the first answer, well, maybe a child was molested as, you know, a young child, 5, 6, 7 years old, or maybe even earlier, God forbid.
And now it's in their head that is a thing, and it's like, okay, this sometimes it could be out of their control. Now I'm not experienced enough, and there's
same.
So, but I think there are ways we need to look at as a society. How can we develop ways to have these people not commit a crime, to either work past these feelings, or, you know, something, so they're not committing the crime, they're not committing a heinous act, and to offer that, because like the example we just gave, because that person is damaged in some way, we don't want to, you know, if they do the action, yes, punish them, but before the fact, how can we prevent that? And it's going to start with the person who's doing the action.
Yeah, you never get that take. You never get from the side of, like, people, not even defending, but talk about people who have those urges, but they haven't acted on it. I don't know what kind of representation that's like of, like, the larger American population.
And I don't think that's the big thing with the MAP community. I think, like, if you are I think it's wrong to try and legalize it. I just want to kind of make this one thing clear when I'm speaking about pedophilia.
Because people take those words and flip it.
Yeah. So specifically, the age of consent should be 18.
Mm-hmm.
You should not have interactions sexually with the children. Shouldn't put yourself in that situation. If you don't know a person's age, ask them. And if you don't believe them, ask for an ID. Like, you have a responsibility for those things. I don't want it to be that to any way that I have empathy for anyone who is doing said wrong actions. Mm-hmm. And I think, at least in terms of politically, I'd rather see a trend in protecting minors in more of a way, and not allowing a lot of the things that the MAP community is pushing. Whatever it may be, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, we went to Catholic school, chastity. Although a lot of people...
that didn't work.
Yeah.
That did not work.
Yeah.
And anyone who says it did, didn't.
That made me want to fuck more. And I don't fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I had friends in public school too. They heard about Catholic school. I'm like, huh. Maybe we, like, it's like,
Maybe we went at it the wrong way.
yeah, maybe we need to take a look in the mirror.
It's like, as they always say, Catholic school girls are like the horniest, and like.
I think that's guys too. As one, I can't. Right hand to God, I will tell you, this is not just one-sided sexually. This is men and women in Catholic schools.
let's not.
Like, I don't want to discriminate. Like, this is both. Right hand to God. Yes, that is.
I'll put both my hands.
Yeah.
Anyway, did not think we would get to pedophiles. That's interesting.
Yeah. No.
Let's talk about Israel. So,
Okay, yeah.
So today, I was downstairs. I was in my basement. I was playing video games with my brother, and my mother had mentioned how, oh, it's so terrible. Israel was just attacked. I don't even know who attacked them, but I proceeded to have this little argument with my mom. I said, why are you defending a country that I won't call them terrorists, but they've done terrible things to the country of Palestine, for example. I see the videos. I see the bombs, the missiles, the drones, and I see the destruction that it's causing. Now, I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know why it happened. Maybe Palestine's drug for. I don't know. But what I do know is I don't think we should blindly be defending a country. And then when I asked her this, why are you blindly defending Israel? She said, oh, well, it's where Jesus is from. And I said, Mother, what are we doing?
Jesus was not an Ashkenazi Jew. He was a Palestinian man. He was brown skinned.
Regardless of where he's from, why does the United States have to be like locked arms with Israel at all times? I don't understand, because we were talking about this before the podcast, and if you look at the United States from a third person's perspective, okay, just zoom out, and you're just a bystander. The past 25 years, okay, we have been the world's terrorist. We have done so much chaos and destruction to the Middle East. I saw, there's a picture that goes around, right? It's got pictures of Libya, Iraq, Iran, and then one other country off the top of my head. Maybe it's Palestine.
Yemen.
Yemen. Yep. And it's all four countries before we stepped foot, we intervened, and then after. And before, I was telling my grandpa this, before there was all this greenery, this lush, all these plants, right? The buildings, the architecture, it's flawless. It's thriving. These cities are thriving. People are walking around, and then you look after the U.S. intervened, and it's this desert, this wasteland, destruction. Buildings have collapsed, been bombed, all this chaos. Yeah, we tanked all of these countries, all of these economies, all these ways of life.
We wonder why they hate us.
Exactly, just to eradicate terrorism. And not only that, but we also try to install democracies. And really what we do is we tank their leadership. So whatever it is, right? Say you have somebody like Gaddafi.
Okay? Yeah.
And we had no business, because we were behind that whole revolution. We have no business getting him out, installing a democracy. Now it's chaos.
Yeah.
Now there's not
basically the Libyan army has control of the government, but there's like
it's a failed state.
It's it's getting to that point. Same with like we see. I always say, if a country wants democracy, they will get it from their people. It's not our job to tell the world.
Exactly.
And the same thing with South America, where in the 70s we did the same thing, similar. We didn't really bomb, I guess, as much, and we like U.S. military intervention, but we helped coup a lot of South American countries from democratically elected socialist leaders.
And we tried to kill Castro however many times.
Like 600.
He still lived.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're for or against communism, capitalism, whatever, fine. But you fight that fight in your home, in your country, on your soil. Why do we have to go to other countries where maybe it works, maybe it doesn't? Who cares?
It's their way of life.
Exactly. Why should we infringe upon other people's rights? We're so gung-ho about our rights, which I get it.
You see that in Afghanistan too right now, because after we left, everyone was like, we gotta leave. And now there's also the outrage of like, look at what the Taliban's doing. Like, what did you think they were going to do?
Yeah.
Did you think that they were going to let women's rights continue? Did you think they weren't going to put like certain laws into place? No, like they have a way of life that the Taliban is imposing, and if the Afghani people wish to change it, Afghani people have to change it
Yeah.
because that's where permanent change is going to come from. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that in what's a good example for, I guess, moving for, we've seen that in Eastern Europe where people did not want a dictatorship. They didn't want these things. The Eastern Bloc did not fall because the United States bombed them. They fell because people rose up and they wanted democratic freedom. They wanted freer markets. They wanted access to goods. They wanted to travel across borders.
You see that here.
Decolonization, we saw that with African nations. They, like, it wasn't because, oh, France and UK are just great countries. They were just, oh, yeah, you can be free now. No. African people in all these African states wanted their freedom. Indians wanted their freedom. Pakistanis wanted their freedom. India is a great country, especially from being there. They're growing. That came from people wanting to be free.
Yeah. Also, one of the biggest markets in terms of online content too. Mr. Beast talked about this in an interview with, I believe it was the Nelk Boys. How he has like a whole channel just dedicated to the country of India. Like all his content, speaking that language.
Oh yeah,
and
Hindi,
being dubbed like that. I thought that was fascinating. He said it's a great way to grow. It's an untapped market, and if they haven't already, which I think they overcame China in terms of worldwide or overall population. Yeah.
Yes, it's not there in GDP nor GDP per capita, but they are. I think they're going to be a big threat to the United States.
I think so too.
In the next 50 years, they are the largest democracy on Earth. Fun fact.
That's crazy.
They have the
Were
most.
they 1.1 billion people or 1.2?
Around there.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
We were talking about China before, and I wanted to touch on that too, as I mentioned India, since they go hand in hand. Obviously, China is number 2 population in the world now, and drastically decreasing because, and I feel like I never understood that when, and this is odd, but we talked about the one-child policy in kindergarten.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was weird looking back at it, like as being really young, talking about that.
Like I was in a Catholic school, like, but for whatever reason,
it came up.
Yeah, it came up, and I mean,
I kind of get it because it's like forced abortion, forced contraception.
That makes sense, but I never truly understood why. You got to look at it from both sides. Okay, so China is obviously a huge country, but I think the argument was like they were running out of land.
So
I don't know what was the argument.
So I don't know when this was started, but I believe it was started by Mao. And the idea was basically they were trying to go from rural society. So rural society, have more kids, you have more workers because a lot of family-owned farms. Well, they went through collectivization. All the farmers, you're working on one farm, one big farm. You send your crops to the city, wherever the state kind of dictates, and then you keep what you have after for yourself. That caused a lot of issues in itself during a thing called the Great Leap Forward. That's a whole nother topic. That happened in the 50s. This kind of started around, I believe it was the 70s or 80s. Well, Mao wanted to pretty much help boost wealth in the country. So instead of dividing up all the wealth among people, if you can keep your population slower, but you are able to grow it, which at the time and even to this day, China has had an awesome economic recovery because they started to liberalize markets. Didn't have to spend as much money on developing their workforce. And on top of that, when you start to industrialize and you have all these people living together, then, I mean, for instance, with women being in the workforce, for instance, women often have less children because there's less, it requires more strain on the body.
Of course.
A lot of women, I'll be honest, I'm going to designate this as women issues occurring from pregnancy or those things. I am not able to speak on as not a woman, but I know that they occur.
I can be. But I can't speak on it currently.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, listen, it worked. I believe this city is Shenzhen in China. I might be saying it wrong, but this was a farm town. You see pictures from like the 70s to now. Thriving. It was like a valley. There was all this green. There was like a river that went through the valley. Nothing there, right? Just green, mountainous range, whatever. And now, thriving city, buildings all over, more modern looking than any city we have in America. So obviously, it propped China up. It worked. But as a result, now you see their population is like...
They have a... So one of the cool... So I don't want to say cool. Interesting. So because of the One China policy, in China, they value men more than women because of the last name and carrying on heritage and a lot of cultural things.
Very traditional in that regard.
So oftentimes if they found out they were having a girl, they would try and get an abortion, et cetera, et cetera. And there were even cases where if they had a kid, they would kill them if they were a girl. Yeah. So that they could then have another kid that hopefully got a guy. So now in Chinese society, you have a whole lot of men and not as many women. Well, it takes a woman to make a child. So...
Still. Not for much longer, but still.
But yeah, no, so it's causing, well, one, the problem of just there's not a lot of... With also women in the workforce, a lot less likely to have kids. Everything's industrialized. And then you now have a lot of young men, and with an economic slowdown in China that we're kind of seeing, you have a lot of young men who are not making as much money, without a wife or girlfriend. They don't have as many opportunities anymore. They're under an oppressive regime that you can't even... They're filtering all your content. That it breeds disaster.
Yeah.
Young, angry men who do not have work is how oftentimes a lot of, whether they're terrorist groups start or uprisings start. I mean, back in 2012, Obama got made fun of it for saying like, hey, the Taliban has such presence because there's not an economy there. But that's 100% true.
It makes sense.
Because if you have a good paying job, you make money, and you can provide for your family, why would you risk that being a terrorist? If your economic situation is good and you're not hungry, you don't have much of a reason to.
Exactly.
As much as I'd like to argue for values in a democratic society, but that's why dictatorships can last. If you're able to provide people those things, oftentimes the average person becomes content.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of seeing that fall apart in China with their kind of iron grip that they had. It was like they didn't liberalize. So the Soviet Union and China kind of did the opposite. The Soviet Union liberalized socially, letting people speak freely, letting them travel freely, things like that.
Yeah.
Before that they put in, they kind of had like the state-controlled industries and stuff still. Whereas China liberalized their markets, but did not liberalize their government. So still stayed oppressive, but okay, you're to a degree, you can have economic free zones, you can start your own business and stuff. So, and what they found was, well, people started to make more money, so the CCP didn't fall, but the Soviet Union did because, well, people still didn't have enough money.
Yeah.
But yeah, China in and of itself, if you can look up videos, they will start huge industrialization projects now, spend millions of dollars, and then give up halfway through.
Really?
But, yeah, you can look up videos of apartment buildings they built, and like there's like a metal bar with a concrete. You can literally, like, just Chinese citizens pull it off. Yeah, like very poor infrastructure and things.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
because all of like the cheap products that we have, like this cup right here, I don't know if it was made in China. I would think so, because oftentimes what happens, and not with this one, but for other cups, plastic cups, for example, I'll drink and then a little bit will drip out of the top. All of our like cheap toys come from China. A lot of them. Some in like Bangladesh too, Vietnam. I've seen Korea or South Korea or North Korea, making that shit. South Korea.
North Korea, best Korea. No.
Don't send a rocket here, please, sir. Please
don't shoot your one nuclear bomb to get off the ground in Youngstown of Ohio.
Can't make it halfway across the water. Anyway, but yeah, and that's reflected across like pretty much everything that China makes. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that makes sense that the infrastructure would be crappy. China is just so interesting because it's like it's like pseudo capitalism and communism, and they just managed to like.
What is the
like a free market? I'm talking about.
Mao coined the term communism with Chinese characteristics.
Yeah.
is what the CCP calls it.
It's fascinating because I don't know if it's working now, but for at least a period of time on the surface, it was
Short term,
working.
it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, which is very fascinating.
And as much as the Soviet Union was a very oppressive state and bad state, we kind of saw that at the start of the Soviet Union, they were able to industrialize. They had the famine under Stalin, but they were able to industrialize, and they caught up to America incredibly fast.
Yeah.
They did terrible things to get there, and I don't want this to be any defense of the Soviet Union, but it was a fact that the Soviet Union went from a backwater state in the 1920s to, by 1950, beating the Nazis, having an industrialized workforce that was competing with the United States on the global stage for influence.
It's crazy. We often forget that they were our allies in World War II.
Yeah, the people called Stalin Uncle Joe. Yeah, which is like looking at those posters.
Not
like,
anymore.
Yeah, no, it's like, man, it's kind of cool too for Russian citizens. Some of them are even looking back to Stalin as like a great figure, which, yeah, well, he was super oppressive and did a lot of bad things. They also, I'm sure, have kind of some reverence to him for. I don't know what the right term is, because he was like, yeah, he beat the Nazis. The Nazis wanted to kill all Russians. They wanted to destroy their culture. They were in a war for, not for freedom or for communism, for their civilization's survival.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like that's a very like, well, America, we did huge things fighting fascism. We were doing it for democracy and saving the free world. They were doing it to survive.
Yeah.
Which I think without either the United States or the Soviet Union, I don't know what the world would be like today.
Yeah, and speaking of World War II, obviously, human nature allows us to forget about the past and not be able to learn from it. Russia, Ukraine is still a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about it last time on the podcast over a year ago, and it feels like it's gotten even bigger since then. There have been multiple attempts on Putin's life, and I would assume there's multiple attempts on Zelensky's life too, back and forth. You see the videos on Instagram, which is fascinating. It's bad, of course, but it's fascinating to see these videos of the war. Like, people say, "Oh no, like it's not like it's happening," but you see the videos of like these tanks getting blown up on Instagram. And it's like, how is that allowed on Instagram, first off, when I can't even say fuck on TikTok? Put that aside. But like, people are losing their lives on both sides, and I don't want to defend either government, but what I will say is, like, I don't want any more people, like citizens in Russia and citizens in Ukraine, the people that have nothing to deal with it. Nobody wants those people to die. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think this conflict will end anytime soon?
So from a geopolitical standpoint, a lot of people kind of argue, oh, let's make peace with Russia. The problem is Russia, in terms for ever having like a peace negotiation or anything like that, they're not trustworthy. They've broken treaty after treaty after treaty. If people are like, oh, well, we haven't tried peace. We've been trying peace for the last 15 years. We tried it in 2014. Okay, you can have Crimea. Okay, you can have these Russian separatist zones where there just so happen to be all these, angry young guys who are really well armed. And, oh, wait, is that a Kremlin-issued uniform? Oh, wait, no, never mind. You know what I mean? Like, okay, but whatever. You can have those things. And even before then, in the 2000s, trying to have economic cooperation. And basically, they were run as a puppet state with the government being pro-Russian.
I was going to say, didn't we install, like, a
We didn't install, actually.
So how'd that work? Because then there was that infamous clip on Colbert. That was before he was Colbert now, back when he was like the conservative character that he played. He had that guy on and basically said something to the degree, and you guys could look this up. I'm not going on my computer now. But like we had a pro-Russia government. We installed like an anti-Russia government. We took Robin away from Batman. That's what the guy used.
It really wasn't. So when the Soviet Union fell, a lot of those countries were still pro-Russia because they were tied economically. Right. And Ukraine and Russia are tied historically. Those are both true facts. Well, Ukraine was kind of under a pseudo-dictatorship with that party. Not as oppressive as during Soviet times, but it's still limited freedom of speech and things like that. And over time, there was economic rundown. Well, a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries started to join the EU. Well, Ukraine would gain a lot from joining the European Union, for instance.
Right.
A lot of citizens in Ukraine wanted to join, and they wanted more freedoms. Well, there was basically a lot of infighting that started to occur both in that party and kind of the reformist party, and that came to a head when I forget the name of the revolution in Ukraine, but people like storming the Ukrainian parliament and stuff, and like kind of it was a big revolution in the Ukrainian military turning on the government, where that president then ended up fleeing to Russia. Well, after that, they had a provisional government and held elections, and then in the United States, then, well, they're a democracy now, going from a pseudo dictatorship. Yeah, let's support them, but there was never the intention of them joining NATO. And even up until the war, Zelensky was like, "No, I don't want to join NATO."
I remember that.
He was
yeah.
like, "I want to be neutral. I don't want the United States to interfere in our anything." And that was also held by Finland. That was held by, I believe it was Sweden as well. That was held by Turkey, kind of, until they joined NATO. But over time, Russia showed that they were not valuing Ukrainian sovereignty, that Ukraine was a separate country, which is core to any nation. They wanted this part, they wanted this, and Putin continually encroaching on that, and that just kept building up and up and up until finally Russia fully invades, thinking it's going to be a short war. Turns out it isn't, because...
Yeah, obviously.
And now we're seeing, when people are saying we need calls for peace, we need this. How can you have peace when you're dealing with a country that time and time again on the international stage is not honoring their agreements? Why agree to a compromise when that country is just... What would happen if we gave a peace with Russia? It's either in a couple months or a couple years. They're just going to try again under Putin, under the current regime. And that's why I see it important, because the United States has been the arsenal for democracy its entire existence. And while at times we do over-involve ourselves, like in the Middle East, when there is I think Ukraine is an example. There's an independent country that's trying to defend itself, where people like don't want to obviously live under Russia, and there is a lot of things where, listen, we should have some protection to democracies, maybe not necessarily under a NATO circumstance, but yeah, we're sending weapons, we're sending here's an interesting fact. When you see, we're sending X billion dollars of aid to Ukraine, that's usually not cash. Rarely is it cash. It's usually U.S. Army reserves items that are kind of outdated. So that's material goods we usually send. So when it's like, oh, well, this money is going to be abused, we will always have that regardless of when we send aid. But oftentimes it's old, outdated military equipment we send.
What are your thoughts on when they said that they had an accounting error? They accidentally sent a certain amount of money to Ukraine that they didn't budget for. Are you familiar with that?
No, but that makes sense. I mean, with the DoD lost. The government is terrible at accounting in general.
They're terrible at lots of stuff.
Yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me.
I just don't get how you lose a couple million, or I don't think it's a couple billion.
I mean, you can look at private corporations; they will fall under the same thing.
True, very true.
This is on an Excel sheet. Someone's overworked, or they type a few things in wrong, and it's like, shit, where did this go? Like, because on paper, remember, you're really tracking on paper or tracking through a system. Both of those things can fail, and it's like, okay, where is this? And for Ukraine, we do need to support them, because also, when in American history did we ever deny the fact that we can fuck on Russia?
Never.
I think we have taken that every single time, and I mean, 30 years ago, that was like, yeah, let's do it. Especially Republicans in Congress be like, let's send guns to a country that's screwing Russia, the Soviet Union, whatever it is.
It's a very Republican thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, through history it has been. It's like, now it's like we've kind of warmed up to Putin, I think, because for some reason, because I think he's taken a similar approach under social issues in Russia, to a degree of that more right wing. And I think some Republicans, some, not all, have resonated with that.
I mean, I understand why they have. It's so odd to see him talking about people in Ukraine, and particularly the Ukrainian government. They're Nazis, they're fascists, and yet, I mean, I don't know how truthful that is, but you're the guy that's putting journalists in jail for speaking out about you.
There's one battalion that is like alt-right Nazi, and the government does work with them. However, let's put this in context of one of the world's largest armies is invading your country and trying to take you over. You're going to take all the help you get.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Like you might not want to work with them forever, but like
that's going to be a uniting thing.
Yeah, like you want national sovereignty. You want to make sure you'd rather deal with them afterwards. Than okay, let's be totally against them. Like no, you right now you're in a
bigger things at play.
There's a much bigger thing to prevent that. So, well, it's kind of Ukraine has a lot of Nazis. No, there's an alt-right movement there that is actually, I would say, that's smaller than in the rest of Europe. Because keep in mind, Ukraine is a former Soviet bloc, and a lot of people still hold kind of leftist sentiments, maybe not as they're socialist or communist, but like generous welfare programs, some state industry, etc. Like so, which is similar in Russia too.
Yeah,
well, people have empathy for the Soviet Union and want government intervention factories or government industry or things like that. They do want that.
I want to flip it now, and this will be the last thing we talk about. Something really big happened in the past couple days. Kevin McCarthy was ousted as Speaker of the House because a couple Republicans decided, and I don't know how this is like allowed, but a couple Republicans decided to just oust him. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? And like, what really happened? Because I'm an idiot. I only read the headlines a lot. And so I see stuff on Twitter. I saw Matt Gaetz, representative from Florida, was leading the charge. But, like, it seems like he kind of just fucked his own party. What are your thoughts? And, like, what happened from your perspective?
So, back when McCarthy and Republicans took control of the House, they were negotiating with the Freedom Caucus, about 20 Republican senators headed by, I believe, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and
Lauren Boebert. Hot.
That could be an episode entirely.
Hot.
She won her election by 600 votes. Fun fact. She almost lost in a red district to a left-wing Democrat.
Her re-election, right?
Yeah, her re-election.
Which is crazy.
Barely won.
Because somebody like DeSantis won his re-election by tons. Like, but it was a blowout. But this one, you would think that it's a Republican district. She's a red. It's not. It's like a purple state. It's not even a red.
Colorado.
Colorado is like it could go if.
Yeah, but they were in rural Colorado.
Yeah, but you would think like they would be happy with the job that she did if it's rural Colorado, traditionally a red district. But like it was close. I remember
600 votes in a congressional election is damn close. They had to do I think 2 recounts to make sure like everything was right.
And here's a little of me thinking like, but they don't like her like. And I didn't pay much attention to her at that time. Yeah, exactly. I thought, okay, she's hot. That's a terrible way to judge the world, but it's how I judge it.
Margot Robbie 2024, that's how Democrats can win again.
Oh my gosh, well, they can win by a lot.
Margot Robbie could sell me anything, and I will buy it.
They could win a lot of ways. Yeah. They have a lot of popular issues, and we could get to that in a second. But I remember Lauren Boebert, there was... not a conspiracy, but like an accusation that she was not a swinger, but an escort. And I was thinking, maybe this is like some radical left just like story they just tried to spin. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But then you see the video at the theater. And if anybody doesn't know, this lady, Lauren Boebert, a Republican representative from the state of Colorado in whatever district, who cares? She's the one that's promoting family values and religion and the Second Amendment and God, right? And then she gets caught at a theater at a Beetlejuice play with this guy, and he's gripping on her.
This guy owns a gay bar and is a huge Democratic Party like financial supporter. I just want to add that part in too.
And so you see her, first of all, she's being very obnoxious. You could see her on the footage. She's yelling, she's vaping. People have told her to stop. You see it on the video. But then this man starts gripping on her tits, and she was wearing a very
somewhat provocative.
Very provocative dress. Like, tits were out, and I don't mean nipples. Oh my, where's our nipples? Like the dress was very tight. And she probably was using a push-up bra, but then again, maybe she doesn't need one. They were just massive. And the camera footage wasn't very good. I'm gonna stop talking about her breast now, but she started to caress the genitalia of her male boyfriend, which that was the first date. And anyway, it got caught on camera, and so she was escorted out of the theater, and the footage proceeds to show you her reaction after she's escorted out, and they kind of lined up all the camera footage to follow her where she went, but she seemed to be very obnoxious and happy, and like carefree about it. And so she to go back on the track, because that was just that was a weird tangent.
How fucking drunk do you think they were?
Oh, I don't know.
They were. I'd like to think that they were hammered and this happened.
Yeah. So
that's not confirmed, but I'm telling myself.
She looked really drunk.
Yeah.
And so this advocate for religion,
conservative
and
values.
for conservative values, yes, and God and faith, who she likes to pretend, and a lot of politicians, they're gonna lie to you. I'm Catholic. I go to church. I believe in all this stuff, but I'm not jerking somebody off in a theater
to Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
The most provocative play in the world.
Yeah, I've never seen it. It didn't sound like it was like good. This is a lady who was also 36 years old, and she's a grandmother. She didn't finish high school. She seems like more and more, and I hate to say I'm racist, and I'm not racist towards a particular race, but I am racist to white trash.
I hate white trash.
More than anything in the world. My gosh, and I'm not even rich. I came from a middle class family. Like, I live in a split level house, but at a certain point, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, the way you present, she seems like not the way that she does not. It's not even like in terms of economic status. It's not presenting yourself in in a proper way in public. Now everyone has a bummy day. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not even talking about kind of presentation, but like, don't act like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, she was one of the ones that led this Freedom Caucus, and yeah, dude. I know there's like an interim speaker of the House to get back on the point. But, like, if you're Kevin McCarthy, he's not going to run again. I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy, but, like, not really, because he's still a politician.
He got smacked around so hard this year. No one would agree to have him be put in place. And that caused them to put a rule in place. That Matt Gaetz got the rule that got him out. Was basically that with a certain vote of certain members of the majority party, because you can have rules for how Congress is operated, and Congress makes those. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a law, they just come to an agreement. Generally it's been the same, but basically it was a rule that anyone could call for, was the equivalent of a vote of no confidence. And then that is basically if a majority of congressional representatives agreed, the speaker can be taken out of power. Well, that vote was able to be called, I believe, with only like 7 people. And so the House Freedom Caucus, during the government shutdown negotiations, wanted a lot of spending cut. Well, McCarthy, to prevent the government from shutting down, people not getting paid, and economic issues, made a deal with Democrats and got, I think, 20 or 30 Democrats to come on board, join Republicans.
And that's what pissed them off.
And that made the Freedom Caucus very angry. So they initiated the vote, and Democrats just kind of took a look and went, we can cause a lot of chaos in the GOP because of this. And obviously, why wouldn't you want, like, yeah, because so all of the Democratic Party and then the Freedom Caucus just voted McCarthy out. And so pretty much now the GOP gets thrown into a tailspin of, we don't have a leader. We don't know who's going to lead us, specifically in terms for the House, which means they can't get any of their agenda through. They're stonewalling the agenda. And so now it's, do you go with the Freedom Caucus or the Democrats?
Is there any way that the Democrats would be able to take control of the House and have Hakeem Jeffries be the speaker?
Yes.
Because he's minority right now.
You would need to get I don't know how many votes it is. You would need to get so many X amount of Republicans to cross the aisle.
Do you think?
If I would have to look at how many swing districts we have, but I think it's in the realm of possibility. And then you would have what's known as a minority leader for the House, because you have majority leader and minority.
Of course,
leader.
he's the minority leader.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah. Just like how he was beforehand, it just interchanges. So you could see the Speaker of the House be the minority party leader. If that's
I just
elected.
think that's so crazy because, like, regardless of what you believe, I don't think it should be all Republican, all Democrat. I think they have to kind of like be there to, there has to be back and forth a little bit. It has to balance out. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be very interesting.
I think McCarthy, I thought it was really funny. I thought Democrats just took a chance of like, you know what? Let's send these guys for a tailspin. Because Republicans talk a lot of shit, like Democrats do, but not to the extent I think the GOP does.
Especially now in the Trump era.
Yeah,
we're still in it.
Yeah, and Republicans are like, we're going to do all this crazy stuff. We're going to get this agenda passed, and we're going to fight this in the Senate. Yeah, and and now they can't even keep like their internal party dynamics working. Where as much whether you like the Democratic Party or not, in the House they run a tight ship. Nancy Pelosi.
They've had it for the majority of the. They've had it for the majority of the time that they've always been in power in the House.
Yeah. They have. They're pretty popular, at least in terms of House races. Yeah. So now, because usually you gotta divide up congressional representation based on population within states, so obviously that's always going to swing to cities, and cities usually vote more Democratic.
Blue. Yeah. Alrighty, so. Who do you think is going to win the 2024 presidential election? Obviously, RFK aside, I'd vote for that man in a heartbeat once again. He might run independent. Who knows? I think it's one real quick. I think it's also really sus how he's not getting any Secret Service protection whatsoever. They want to hurt my boy, but whatever. Trump or Biden?
Biden.
I think that's how it's gonna go. Because
no one wants to vote for Trump. No one wants to vote for Trump again, and it's like, over Trump or Biden, screw it.
I see people. I follow a lot of news, accounts, right? Mm-hmm. So there's Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. I like Secular Talk with Kyle Kalinske. There's these two guys from the UK. It's called Trigonometry. They're both they were teachers, but they're comedians. So they have a page. What else? Young Turks. I like the Young Turks. I also like Ben Shapiro though too. I
love Brett Cooper. She's beautiful.
She's also tall too. She's like 6 foot.
Oh my!
You would never know that.
No, Brett Cooper. If you see this, I love you. I'll take you on a date. I disagree with every political opinion you have, but I watch your show just because of those beautiful eyes you have. Only reason I'm subscribed to the Daily Wire. Only
you pay money for the Daily Wire?
I don't pay money, but I got notifications.
Oh, YouTube.
On.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, what I was saying was I want to get news from like everybody, not just like traditionally like a MSNBC or like a Fox or CNN. I think it's very important to have alternative viewing points, and then you're able to ultimately decide like what you think. And so through consuming this media, like, I don't know, man. I think they're both very unlikable, and it's just like a toss-up. I also think that we gotta have age limits on this shit, you know?
I think if you're old enough to get Social Security, I think that's when you can, like, either run out your term, depending on what office you're in. It's like, okay, you hit 65, you either get one more election or finish out your term. I don't know what the exact ones are going to be, because there is benefit in having older individuals, and they do deserve representation.
I agree.
But it's over-representation right now.
I just think, like, when you have a Dianne Feinstein.
Rest in peace, yeah.
Yeah.
In her career, she did a lot of good things, but towards the end, it was kind of sad to see.
And, like, you saw that even from her own party, too, like, they kind of wanted somebody newer. You were getting rumblings of that. I don't know, man. Because, like, her daughter was controlling her estate, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she wasn't in control.
Yeah, she had power of attorney, yeah.
Yeah. and she was being wheeled in, and she had missed for like
A lot
three
of
months
health
at a time.
issues. Yeah,
Yeah,
she had a lot of health issues, and for a woman who had a great political career and was like she did a lot for women's rights and being a trailblazer for women in government.
mayor of San Francisco, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
she did a lot in her career, and I feel it was somewhat of a sad way to go. And I just hope she's remembered more for her accomplishments than this late end career where she wouldn't step down.
Yeah, I don't know. So her, and then you see it from the Republican Party too. McConnell.
Chuck Grassley, he's gonna be 96, I think, when he ends this current term because he's 88. Or no, he's running at 88, 6-year term in the Senate. And he's an Iowa senator. That's gonna be a Republican. So 6-year term, he'll be 94.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be allowed. You saw McConnell just like his battery died or something. He was just like buffering. He was
I
just,
don't mean to laugh.
no, you could laugh. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's the only way to deal with all this shit is to laugh, bro. If there's a limit on how old you have to be president, right? And obviously he's Senate Minority Leader, but like there has to be an age limit. And you maybe go case by case. Maybe you take like a cognition test every 6 months to a year. I don't know, but it's like the amount of gaffes. I mean, you even see this with Biden.
Yeah, I think it's a more so we need mental competency, and I think if you Congress needs a lot of reform. And I think age limits and term limits are only part of the things that we need to change. I think there's a lot more work in terms of democratic processes we need to reform.
Term limits would be fantastic.
That's a great place to start. Ending lobbying.
They'll never agree to it though, because they're just sucking on the tit of all these interests.
I think if you grandfather the current representatives in, I think they would do it.
You think?
I think if it's, hey, you as a current congressional representative do not abide by this rule, and while that's not right, I think if you grandfather them in, then it's like, okay, well, I can make a benefit. I don't have to hurt my current position, but I can make a genuinely good change, which then I can show my district that I did this.
Huh. What are your thoughts on the insider trading? Because even though it's not technically insider trading, but like Pelosi's husband is just a rock star when it comes to trading.
Yeah, Democrat or Republican, it's a problem. I think
Dan Crenshaw too.
Yeah, Dan Crenshaw. Unusual Whales, if you follow them on Twitter, they always kind of show different trends that happen in the market, and they'll show, okay, this congressional representative did this trade, XYZ.
Yeah.
And Representative Ro Khanna of California, Democrat, and actually Representative Matthew Gaetz both put a bill to ban it. I think only... So you can own, as a congressional representative, U.S. government treasury bonds.
Right.
You can own only the S&P 500 and like basically ETFs that are like the basic stocks, because I do think we should allow them to have some ability to save for themselves, and if you are rich, to retain some wealth, but having it only so basic, you are not like allowing any individual companies to benefit, but it's like if you allow them government bonds and then just, hey, the overall stock market to do well, and you can do, there's stocks that are just like, hey, this is all of the S&P 500 in one.
Yeah.
This is all of the NASDAQ, whatever. There you go. That's it. You're done.
I feel like it would be unconstitutional to just say you can't invest in anything like that.
Yeah, you should allow them to grow wealth, but you shouldn't be multimillionaires. They'll probably be millionaires. I mean, you're just powerful and usually a smart person. Like, I will admit.
Yeah, but you can't have like a Pelosi $200 million net worth.
Yeah, no, you can't be multi-billionaire, or you can't be... Yeah, it's bad, and I think that would be the best balance for it, because then you also allow representatives to retain their own interest.
Yeah.
And I think you should allow, also grandfather them in, of where you can own your stock currently you own, and you can sell it, but you can't start buying new stocks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's because then, okay, my position as a representative, who, corrupt or not, is not harmed by passing this bill, but I can still bring it to my constituents and retain my power.
Yeah. That was interesting that you said that. Matt Gaetz and and, 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 and,
I would say he's a Democrat. He's not like a Dem sock, but like pretty progressive. He's a progressive.
Wasn't Ossoff in that too?
Yeah, yeah.
From Georgia.
Yeah. It got both sides of the aisle support,
Which was
from
very
very
interesting.
younger. Usually they were either MAGA Republicans and like younger progressives teaming up.
AOC was in on that too, if I'm correct.
It's a very weird coalition
And
of people.
nobody talked about it.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz and AOC agreeing on an issue, they're polar opposites. It's
Nobody
insane.
talked about it. But are they polar opposites, or are they just polar opposites in terms of Republican and Democrat? Because they're both like on the extreme end of their party.
I think they have some policy issues they agree on. I think they have things they agree on, but a lot less than agree. But I think overall, Democrats and Republicans in this country can come to middle ground solutions.
You saw it with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can do it. I think we can do it with everything: trade and tariffs, gun control. We can do it with the culture wars. Well, I don't think that's not a government problem to solve. I think we as a society need to solve it.
I think go ahead.
Abortion.
I think it's so easy to solve. Here's the thing: most people don't want late-term abortion.
Yeah.
Okay, the majority of people, Republican, Democrat, don't want late-term abortion. I think that's something that we could all unite upon. Also, from the Republican side, I think most people want abortion in terms of rape and incest. I think that's a majority thing. And another thing too, if there was you had to have an abortion as a woman, and it was between your life or your child's life, and say you're already a mother, I'm sorry, I think the majority of people are going to say
you can't incentivize a person to let themselves die.
Exactly.
Or
and
prevent that. Like, yeah.
And so I think it's quite easy to find a middle ground here, but obviously we have these news organizations that have a vested interest in keeping us at odds with each other, because hey, outrage sells, and right now it's selling big.
The devil works hard, but Rupert Murdoch, he works harder.
Retired.
Finally.
I mean, it's just going down to his son, though.
Yeah, it's not much change. Apple don't fall far from the tree.
And Fox News did start all this. You go back to the early interviews of Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly.
I will say, I understand why they're so popular. I hate everything Fox News says, usually. It's pretty funny to watch. It's entertaining. Yeah. They are entertaining. Again, Democrat, I disagree with what you say. I see the appeal. I see why people watch
There's always like a hot blonde girl. Just there.
Brett Cooper, I love you.
Oh my gosh, she's not blonde, but yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing: like, would you rather have like a short-haired blue-haired person on MSNBC, or would you rather have a blonde girl, long blonde hair, big tits on Fox,
or just a boring white guy talking head in a suit and tie?
Yeah.
Or you can have Tucker Carlson being bombastic and all this emotion.
Is he wearing a toupee? Tucker Carlson, I don't know. It kind of looks like a toupee. I'm a Tucker fan personally. I think that he's widely very entertaining.
Yeah, I disagree with what he says, but he is entertaining.
He's so entertaining. He does have a couple points that I like. What I don't like though is when he had that Trump interview. Mm-hmm. Not to cut you off again. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
He had that Trump interview, and he didn't ask any of the questions that I would have asked. Like, what I would have asked. Why didn't you pardon Edward Snowden and Julian Assange? You're talking about this all the time on your show.
Why didn't you do it?
Why? Why are you asking him about like dumbass questions about the aliens? And did you know Jeffrey Epstein was doing all this? Like,
but
people asked him.
Here's a photo of you. Like, explain yourself.
People asked him before about that, and I agree. There's a lot of unknown information by the public, and a lot of these celebrities, movie stars, athletes, comedians, whatever you are, they were in on it. Mm-hmm. We know that, but for some reason the flight log wasn't released. But like, let's actually ask questions that have the interest of the American people at heart.
I think it was, I don't know if it was the Nelk Boys or Dave Portnoy. they had him on and were interviewing and talking to him, and it was kind of like it was.
Both of them did.
Yeah, but it was, I can't remember which interview it was, and it was like, oh, like you're talking about golfing. It was like, oh, you were golfing with so and so, and they were joking, ha ha ha. And then I forget who the interview was exactly. He just turns and goes, so why can't someone take a kneel during the pledge, like just out of pocket, like explain yourself here.
No, boys, I think.
Yeah, just like
Which, here's what I'll say about that. Isn't that like the essence of freedom of speech and freedom of expression? I understand completely. I just kicked the mic. I understand why people were against it. I mean, I don't particularly like it. You don't have to like it, but like, this is somebody's freedom of speech. They were protesting whether or not you think it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. Why would you want to take that away? Because if we do that, then we're no different than Putin in Russia.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There is, our rights are sacred, not our rights are sacred in this country, not our symbols.
Exactly.
And I respect the American flag and respect the military, but people have that right for that reason in this country, and that's why, we gotta, whether we like people's opinions or not, we gotta let them have them.
Yeah, just like you can burn an American flag. It used to be illegal. Now it's legal.
It was constitutionally upheld. It's like it's all it is you have to do it in like a certain manner to prevent a like damage to property, basically. Something like very minor,
very
like,
rational.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, having the episode come to a close, I greatly appreciate having you on all the time. I've got smarter. I feel like I've learned a lot. But this has been a real treat, man. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you have, maybe like where people can find you, or if you don't want them to find you?
You guys can find me at DNAPES, DNAPES _ on Instagram. That's kind of the main social media I use. I just mainly post memes there and just updates on my life. But I do want to do just like kind of a quick shout out. Right now we're recording this in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you guys have any money, any spare change, donate it to cancer research. It's something that affects me personally. I had grandma with cancer. I've worked with many charities to raise it over time, and do what you can to also support if you know cancer survivors or those with cancer. That's gonna that even following a page that helps money raise will do just anything or something.
Yeah,
that's what the only thing I could ask. Even if you hated every single word I said today, please.
Yeah, it hits home for me too. My Aunt Patty had breast cancer. She's not with us anymore. And I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother too. But yeah, I've never heard anybody advocate for that. That's good, at least on a podcast anyway. So yeah, I'll see what I'll donate my money spare change, whatever.
Even $5 on anything if you guys can. If you can't, it's no big deal. Just to we just talked about politics and how the world was bad, but that's something we can all can do to make the world a better place.
I mean, if you're against funding cancer research, then
yeah,
what the hell?
I've never heard anyone be pro-cancer.
Anyway, Dan Naples, pleasure having you on, sir.
Always a pleasure thank you for having me.
Of course, I apologize. It's been such a long gap in between, but we had a lot of changes. Went through a couple producers. Appreciate everybody that helped with that. But yeah, man, we're growing now, so appreciate having you on, and you'll be back sooner than it was last time.
Can't wait to be back.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
We'll see ya. Hey, go watch the Lauren Bobart video. We'll see ya.